Welcome to this week's Who the Folk podcast. I'm Lonnie Goldsmith, the editor of TC Jew Folk. It's almost June, so this week we talk all things Pride with J Pride program coordinator Jayce Koester. Jayce reflects on her first year on the job, what new programs J Pride is running to celebrate Pride this coming month, and how the organization looks to connect with its constituency year-round on this week's Who the Folk podcast. Jayce Koester, welcome to this week's Who the Folk podcast. Thanks for being with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So coming up, we're this is going to drop on Memorial Day.
Cool.
So coming up at the end of this week is June. June is Pride Month.
It's coming so fast. Yeah, I am aware.
Which, as you would, I would think you would be. So you, as the J Pride coordinator, this is sort of a lot of what you do points to this month, right?
Yeah, it's like the secular year turns over in January, the Jewish year turns over at Rosh Hashanah, and then like the queer organizer year turns over at the end of June. It's like we get to start fresh.
So how do you, this is your first year as J Pride coordinator, right? This is your first Pride as coordinator?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What's it been like in sort of the build up to this sort of this first June for you in this position?
It's been really good and really exciting. Luckily, I had a full year working in the role before Pride came. So I had relationships in the community. I've been working with congregations and with organizations, but have so much deep respect for all of the organizers who ran Pride before me, because it's no small feat to coordinate our community. But also, luckily, our community is so thrilled to turn out to Pride and have folks lined up, for each step of the way. So it's really exciting.
So what's some of the new things that you're looking to start this year programmatically wise for Pride that hasn't been tried, maybe has been done elsewhere that you've seen and decided to now is the time to implement in our community, or sort of new ideas that you've come up with? What's on tap this year? Yeah,
we have a really packed June. Pretty much anytime during June you want something to do, I have an answer for you. I'm really excited. This is the first time we're holding a communally sponsored drag story hour at the Davis JCC. So J Pride, PJ Library in Minneapolis and St. Paul, and then the JCCs of Minneapolis and St. Paul are coming together to host a gallery reception and drag story hour. So we have 2 drag performers coming to read children's books for families, although it's great for all ages. And then we also will have a gallery showing up for the first few weeks of June. And so we'll read stories with our drag performers in the gallery filled with photos of folks living queer and trans Jewish lives here in the Twin Cities. And that's on Sunday, June 2nd from 2 to 5 p.m. But if you're just here for the drag story hour, we'll have the performers there reading from 3 to 4.
Okay.
And then the other thing that's new this year that I'm really excited about is, so last year we held like an impromptu, 3 weeks to plan it, Pride Shabbat on Saturday morning off of Loring Park. And this year we're hosting a Torah service at the park on the Rainbow Stage on Saturday morning with the full sponsorship and support of Pride.
Wow.
So we're going to bring a Torah out there. We have a whole crew of people helping to plan the service, and it's going to be really exciting to honor members of our community who have been doing phenomenal work for years and years and years. And then also to bring some real Jewish flair to Loring Park this June.
And I was going to ask you about that, because I know last year was the first time, and it was very, very late in the planning. Last year was the sort of an understatement maybe. But last year was the first time that there had been any sort of organized Jewish communal presence on Saturday of Pride Shabbat, because the J Pride booth in Loring Park had always been dark on Saturday to honor Shabbat. Last year the decision was made to have a service, and this year sort of taking it to the next level. Yeah. What was sort of the process in getting the buy-in to be able to do something on that large of a scale for this year?
Yeah. So Rabbi Amy Ariel, who is a leader in the community, stepped up. She ran the service, was one of the leaders of the service last year, along with a few other folks and an ASL interpreter. And she stepped up this year and said, I want to make it happen on the stage. And I said, great, what can we do to help? And so we've been working together over the past year, and we've had immense buy-in from congregations, from organizations, from the community. I mean, every time I sit down and talk to someone and be like, we're going to have a Torah at Loring Park, right? The reaction is, what? That's so cool. How do I get in on that? And so I think that people are really hungry for it. We've had really strong expressions that people want Jewish communal and observational opportunities throughout the year. But Pride is a special time, right, to do that really publicly.
So how do you take some of the Pride activities that are going on this month and build off them and carry them through the rest of the year? Because obviously the year is not is longer than just June.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. So how does J Pride become, and the activities and the programs of J Pride become a bigger annual presence from July through May?
Yeah, I mean, the bulk of our programming is from July through May. And then we have this kind of blowout celebration in June. But we do a lot of work throughout the course of the year. We host both social events, ways for people to get connected and build community, not just happy hours, but other kind of social spaces where people can meet and connect. But then we also host spaces for Jewish observation. We've held a Seder. We held 3 services during the high holidays. We've done Shabbat services. And also we work with our Jewish institutional partners throughout the Twin Cities to help them kind of grow and be the best that they can be and being welcoming and inclusive. So really the bulk of our programming is the rest of the year. And then in June, we just kind of put the gas pedal all the way down and go really hard for a couple of weeks with the rainbow and then kind of go back into our daily rhythm.
Do you take maybe a week or two at the beginning of July to sort of decompress? Because I feel like after the blitz that is going to be this coming month, you might need it.
Yeah, well, this is my first year with Pride, so doing Pride with J Pride. But yeah, I'm assuming I'm gonna need a quiet day or two in early July to take a breather.
So how did you get connected with J Pride as an organization? Obviously, your social justice is important to you. You were a JCA prior to this. What is it about working in sort of the Jewish social action space that's important to you?
Yeah, I mean, for me, my Jewish practice is really, really deeply linked to building a world that's more whole, that's just, that's compassionate for all of us, right? I think kind of that core Torah that exists for so many of us. But then also as a queer and trans Jew, like for me to be in the Jewish community means that many of us have to carve out our own spaces. Right. And so doing work that actively increases the capacity of our community to thrive and to bring people into the center, it also is what's going to make Judaism and our practice in our community sustainable for the future. Like so much of the innovation I see in communal leadership, in ritual building is coming from queer and trans Jews. It's coming from Jews who have lived on the margins. And we see that in J Pride's work, and it feels like a fundamental value and necessity for how I live in the world.
So J Pride is housed here. We're sitting in a conference room here at JFCS. So it is housed within JFCS, which to me at least has always felt like the right organization, not to suck up to your employer or to the people hosting this, sitting in their space, but it has always felt like the right organization that J Pride should sort of be under that umbrella.
Yeah, and Jewish Family and Children Services, when they established J Pride now many years ago, was one of the first organizations to step up and have a really visible presence for LGBTQIA Jews. And they also felt some backlash for it, right? There were some people who were upset that they were taking that really visible and outward stance. And Jewish Family and Children Services really stood by that decision and have continued to support and grow the program over the years. And that's been leadership that's changed our whole community, right? We see more and more organizations willing to step up and do that work. And so JFCS is a powerful place to hold it. And I work alongside people throughout community services who are making sure that people have access to spaces around food security, making sure that people can celebrate their holidays, making sure disabled Jewish folks also are fundamental pillars of our community, right? And that our community is creating the space that everybody needs. And PJ Library and other folks. So it feels like I'm in a crowd of people who are all really working to make sure our community is as accessible and engaged as we can.
Are there a lot of other, again, this is sort of me being my own Twin City centric bubble, but are there a lot of other organizations like J Pride around the country, either independent or housed within some sort of family and children's service type structure that creates a network of all of you together?
If somebody wants to throw down the resources to create a network, I would be so in. That gathering would be a lot of fun. But I mean, I think that this work in specific is really interesting because it's always existed in a variety of different iterations, right? Queer and trans Jews have always been building place and space. And whether that's codified institutionally, I think kind of depends on where in the country you are. There are other folks doing similar work. But, I also like to say that our work is unique and special to the place we live. Yeah.
Was that out of necessity that those places were that queer Jews had to carve out their own spaces because the institutional community wasn't as maybe welcoming or open to that sort of thing?
Yeah. Yes. A, yes. And B, a little deeper. I mean, I think our Jewish community has always been diverse and expansive, and different streams, different communities, different movements have all moved in different paces in keeping up with the community. But I mean, there has always been a push for greater inclusion, and there are many people who have been systematically denied places in the Jewish community, which makes organizations like this deeply necessary here and in other places.
How have you seen the responsiveness to the LGBTQIA plus? Did I get all those right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
That's a good one. LGBTQIA plus is a good.
Okay, cool.
Good
Thank
call.
You. How have you seen the local Jewish community's responsiveness to that particular community and the needs of that group over the course of not just the last year, but that you've been in the place here, but also within the maybe more recent history of the Twin Cities Jewish community?
I think that different institutions move at different rates, and different institutions are really catering to different needs throughout the community, and depending on where folks are focused, changes their responsiveness. I will say that our community, many of our community partners are engaged in the Keshet leadership project this year, which is a year-long program where 16 or 17 communal organizations stepped up and built really, really detailed plans for how they're going to grow accessibility within their institution, and have been continuing to make changes and grow. So especially right now, I feel like we're in a moment where organizations are beginning to take greater responsibility to actually making their programs, their places of worship more inclusive.
And that kicked off last fall, right? The Keshet leadership program, was that like October, November?
Yeah, so we're moving into the last half of the leadership program, so people are moving through their plans.
So what kind of feedback have you been getting from the organizations as the year has progressed, as they sort of work towards finishing up their plan?
I mean, I think folks are excited. It's really created a push and a structure to do the work within, but also these plans are jumping off points, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you can't totally shift cultural and structural components of your institution in just a year. If any community knows that well, I think the Jewish community really does, as much as we try to believe otherwise. And so I think that what it's really doing is creating a strong base for us to continue doing deeper work in the years to come.
So that's going to wrap up in the fall. What's sort of phase 2 of that? Obviously, having that program for the year and having the support of an organization like Keshet is phenomenal. Great organization out of Boston. What's the next, is there going to be another cohort next year for it? Or is it sort of taking the plans that these organizations have put into place and kind of watch them work a little bit before jumping into a next phase?
Well, I think that the next phase, so J-Pride provides consultation, support, training for organizations. This is really highlighting the work that organizations are going to need to keep doing and keep investing in. And so I think J-Pride and other resources in the community, although J-Pride is the only queer and trans Jewish organization with any paid staff in our community besides Keshet, has somebody who works nationally, Emily Saltzman, who was formerly an employee at JFCS, and she runs their national training programs, and we're so lucky to have her housed here. But J-Pride is really the organization that's doing work with organizations to help them continue doing this work in the years to come.
So I think the one thing that I really find interesting about J-Pride is that you do have this month full of activities going on throughout June. It's not just about the parade and the table at the park, although the parade is a blast. If you haven't gone, go.
Come march with us.
Come march with J-Pride. It's a lot of fun. What sort of, response have you been getting in terms of the programs that you've put out? So, the list of the programs that are out, and we'll have the full list of them on TCG Folk the end of this week, so you'll be able to see, and we'll update it as much as needed. Mm-hmm. What type of, when you're setting up the programs for the month, is it based on things that you're interested in personally, people who are interested in, or is it people saying to you, hey, we should have something like X? What goes into programming this month?
So programming this month is, I think, a mix of different things. One is our constituency, our community. What do folks want to see? We know folks want moments for ritual observance around Shabbat, other moments. We know that we have a happy hour every year that's loved, and this year it'll be at Urban Growler. So we always have that programming, but then also it's what do community partners want to see, right? Like we're working with PJ Library on both sides of the river. We're working with the JCCs on both sides of the river. We're working with Mayim Rabim. We're working for our Kabbalat Shabbat service. We're working with a multitude of organizations and synagogues for the Saturday morning at the park. And then we have buy-in from so many community partners for the parade and at the booth, rabbis who come and staff our booth. So really it's about what represents our community and what helps bring our community fully into Loring Park, and designing programming that helps meet that goal and those needs.
I'd imagine that a program like J Pride could only be successful with large scale community buy-in, right?
Yes. And we have a huge community of queer and trans Jews in the Twin Cities, of LGBTQIA Jews who are in deep community with each other, who are looking for opportunities to be engaged and stay engaged. And so our community partners powerfully support and move our work forward. And there is a deep constituency here who is really, bought in and engaged with the work that we're doing. So it's both our institutional partners and a community that is so phenomenal and diverse and powerful.
Now, is J Pride a membership organization? Do people join if they want to get involved? How does that work for folks, both allies and members of the LGBTQ community?
You show up. We have an email list.
That's easy.
It's really easy to get on our email list. It's really easy to follow our Facebook. And then we do have opportunities for folks who want to be involved with planning. We have a crew of phenomenal folks who have been helping to put together these moments of ritual observation over the course of the year. Both rabbis, lay leaders, people from all different places in the community and kind of walks of life. So there are definitely ways to kind of step up and be a leader in the program, but you are welcome to make a contribution to J Pride and support our programming throughout the course of the year, but there's no membership dues.
Okay. Excellent. Well, last couple questions and we'll let you get back to the last push before June. Favorite Jewish holiday?
Yeah, right.
No, what is your favorite Jewish
holiday? What is
holiday?
my favorite Jewish holiday? I was like, oh yeah, Pride. I have a deep soft spot for Purim. I was part of a team with my J Pride hat off who put on a bunch of queer Jewish Purim programming this year. I love Purim. And then also Shavuot is coming up, and J Pride is working together with Beth Jacob and Shir Tikva to host an all-night learning on the theme of Revelation. Shavuot is often claimed as a queer holiday. The story of Ruth and Naomi is often held closely to many, many hearts in the LGBTQ Jewish community. And so also a holiday I love. What a better excuse to eat cheesecake and hang out all night.
Yes. Cheesecake, can't go wrong with cheesecake. Unless you have too much of it, then
it's a problem. It quickly becomes a problem.
Indeed. And speaking of cheesecake, favorite Jewish food?
Favorite Jewish food? I think my mom's latkes. I have such strong memories, right, of that was the time where we got to eat fried potatoes in my home. And so my mom's latkes and smoked salmon salad for Hanukkah lives warmly in my heart.
Fried potatoes any time of year is...
I know.
It's never a bad time to eat those.
Yeah, well, and jelly donuts. We get so many good fried foods just throughout the year.
We do, but really Hanukkah feels like they get piled on there.
Yes.
Those are two, latkes and fried jelly donuts.
Yep.
It's a lot for one holiday, but we'll take them. Well, Jayce Koester, thank you very much for joining us this week. We will have all kinds of information on JPride up on tcgfolk.com, but good luck in your first JPride as program coordinator here at JFCS for the program.
Cool. Well, thanks. We'll see you at Pride.
Absolutely. Thanks again to Jayce for joining us this week. If you haven't yet, please subscribe, rate, and review the show. If you have any suggestions for future interviews, shoot me an email. You can get me at editor@tcjewfolk.com. Thanks again for listening, and we will see you next week.